Hey folks, welcome to InTheMoneyStocks.com's intraday analysis video, brought to you by the creators of Proprietary Price, Pattern, and Time Methodology. Learn the PPT methodology and profit for life. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here at InTheMoneyStocks.com. All right, folks, the date is Monday, December 10th. The time is about 2:15 p.m. Eastern Time. The markets are inching up just a little bit today. We have the S&P up about 1 point on the day. NASDAQ is up about 7, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 20 points. You can see the market's very quiet today. In fact, we've only done 52 million on the SPY in terms of volume. That is probably on pace to be one of the lightest volume days of the year. That is ridiculously light, folks, in all seriousness. So, in all fairness, it is getting towards the middle of December. We're waiting on a Federal Reserve meeting that will be announced. The results will be announced on Fed rate policy on Wednesday. So, obviously, that's going to keep Monday and Tuesday very, very light. In addition, once you get towards this middle portion of the month of December, the holiday starts to come into play, Christmas, New Year's, and so forth. Plus, we're still waiting on whether or not there's a resolution on the fiscal cliff. So it seems to me that the market movement today is very, very quiet in terms of just waiting. We're waiting to get all this news, whether or not we're going to have a new QE policy on Wednesday, whether or not a resolution on the fiscal cliff. What about the holidays, and how are we going to trade with all the vacationers coming into the holidays? All that is keeping things very, very light. You can see today we opened slightly lower, pushed up, had a little bit of bullish consolidation intraday here. Notice the consolidation followed the blue trend line, which happened to be the open from Friday. So we opened here on, this is the intraday 10-minute on spiders, by the way. So as you can see here, we opened flat or right here on Friday before selling off and then coming back. The high of the early morning session kept on bumping into that level, and then all of a sudden we saw a nice breakout. The breakout was just one candle long, spiking up as Apple spiked up. Apple actually gapping down today. We'll talk about that earlier, or in a little bit anyways. And then once that happened, the markets really have just faded here. And, you know, in all fairness, I wouldn't call it a bearish pattern here, but it's not exactly a bullish pattern either. You do have a small bearish consolidation pattern, but the 50 MA right below, as well as the fact that there's no volume in this market, makes it somewhat unlikely that we're going to see that much downside. I think a lot of it has to do with what Apple's going to do. Apple really controlling the markets these days, especially when everything else is just waiting on the fiscal cliff decision and the Federal Reserve decision, which we should get on Wednesday. All right, so that's where we have it. Notice the highs of the day here, folks. I gave out this trend line in the No Hype Live broadcast to the Research Center last night, which is a live broadcast I do where I take questions, show live charts. It's part of the Research Center here at InTheMoneyStocks.com, and there is a 7-day free trial for the Research Center. If I zoom out, you can see we had the reversal last week on Wednesday, where we were at the lows and then reversed to the highs. Since then, the market's been floating up. Part of me thinks that assuming the fiscal cliff gets taken care of, and there's some sort of at least kick the can down the road type event, we could actually see this market just float up into the end of the year. All right, I do think there'll be a little bit of rumblings because of the Federal Reserve and the fiscal cliff, whether or not it's going to happen, but once that's all said and done, again, I think we do float up towards the end of the year. Taking a look at Apple, guys. Let's take a look here on the Apple chart. There was a good level on Apple I gave my traders in the intraday stock chat, which is another service we offer here at InTheMoneyStocks.com. What you had to do, all you had to do was basically take the low going back to the 16th of November, take a trend line, connect it through the low from last week, and you essentially got the exact low of today. So again, please note that connecting this low to this tail low right here gives you the low of today. And again, if I zoom in, you can see that low perfectly. So that's where the market, or on Apple, we sold off this morning. Now, what was interesting about Apple this morning was that the selling came in just in the first candle, and then we bounced up. And it seemed to come in relation to the media. And this is something that's been a problem for Wall Street forever. I mean, really, it's been just a constant, especially ever since the media became a bigger participant in Wall Street and driving the market with news and so forth. But what we saw this morning was this like kind of fear-mongering on CNBC. CNBC kept on talking about it, oh, this, so that on Apple, oh, tax selling, and really it creates this hysteria for the average investor. And this is unfortunate, but the average investor usually gets screwed on this. But the average investor is the one that's waiting there to sell right at the open because they're panicking because of everything that they've heard on CNBC all morning long. So they dump thinking Apple's going to have this huge down move, and then institutions and smart traders like myself are waiting there at the lows on a technical basis to pick it up. And I urge everyone who's an average investor out there, you got to join the research center. I mean, we'll guide you, we'll show you the ins and the outs. You have to avoid the hype on Wall Street in the media. That's the worst thing you can do, is listen to what's being said there in the media, folks. And again, you can see today that first candle sell-off took you down to 521.58, and then literally within an hour you were trading around 540. I mean, think about that 20-point difference, the difference between positive and negative on Apple and everything, and all those little guys getting flushed out. It's very, very sad that that happens. Once we did run to that highs, then you started to see a slow bleed down. And now you actually have a bearish pattern here on Apple as well on an intraday basis. Question is there enough volume to drive it down? 2 moving averages above, bearish pattern. Yes, that is bearish, no doubt about it. But again, my question would be whether or not we have enough volume in this market to really push it down. And we'll know by the end of the day. I mean, I do think you'll get some sort of move out of Apple towards the end of the day. If the Apple by chance closes positive, I think it has a multi-day run in it. But if it's able to close negative, it could be headed lower. My guess as a swing trade, I'll be looking at below $500. So if it happens to get below 500, I think picking up a little as a swing trade is a wise decision. Other than that, I'll just sit on the sidelines. Of course, if I pick it up at any point as a swing trade, I will put out a live alert inside the research center for all our members to see. So you'll know exactly, you'll know my entry, my stops, my targets, and so forth. All right, let's look at a couple other stocks out there that are moving today. Baidu, great reversal here. Baidu flushed last week. I talked about it to my research center guys, saying it was probably just a short-term flush here, and sure enough, since then, Baidu's come all the way back. Baidu is a Chinese company, and there was kind of some issues there with the Securities Exchange Commission and what they were going to require from Chinese companies, and it caused Chinese companies to sell off last week, but most Chinese companies have come back, especially the big boys like Baidu. And actually, this is making a nice consolidation pattern. This tells me it probably heads higher if it holds this pattern tomorrow or the next day. So this actually could be a nice little setup going forward. We'll have to keep a close eye on it. So that's a nice one there. Google's trading up $1. Amazon's actually down $4 today. I am short Amazon. That's been a great call. And look at Amazon just continue to collapse. Beautiful drop here with an in spirit of bearish pattern right there. Look at that. Look at that collapse then to the new lows here. Just bouncing off the lows. But again, this was a no-brainer short. Looking good to the downside. And sure enough, giving us some good profits there. So in the money on this trade, continuing to follow some other plays out there, and everything seems and continues to look pretty solid. So very, very nice so far there. Let me take a look at anything else here. Chevron's trading down about 40 cents. Exxon's down about 25 cents. Goldman and JPM are flat to slightly negative. So again, it's a very quiet day, but there is some action really in Apple. Noticing a little bit of action in a couple other areas. Let's take a look at the dollar here, the UUP. Quiet there, just down a penny on the UUP. On an intraday basis, you can see it was lower and then it floated up, and now it's kind of floated back sideways across the board. GLD's up 71 cents, so gold's getting a little bid today, although fading off those highs. SLV, let's take a look there, plus 13 cents, not much doing there. Charts being a little slow today, coming up. And the USO, which had gapped up nicely today, oil had gapped up very, very nicely, has since come in. Look at that collapse here into the 230 time frame. That's a pretty ugly collapse, and that's part of the reason why Chevron and Exxon, which were positive earlier, are now on the downside. In terms of other trades, I'm trying to think about anything in the market right now, but things, again, are so slow and sleepy, there's not much out there. Again, I'm holding my swing trades. If you want to get these swing trades, take the 7-day free trial to the research center. They're there for the taking, and again, we can go over them very, very nicely there. I'm trying to think of what else. Let's see here. Yeah, I think that's about it. Trying to think if there's anything else. Let me go back to the Spiders chart. Spiders just up 7 cents here. Bearish pattern still there, but downside minimal at best with the volume in the 50 MA there. Hard to imagine that's really going to sell too hard unless Apple really starts to dump out towards the end of the day. What else do we have here? Small cap wise, there's not a whole lot moving there. CBMX is just a marvel though. CBMX, take a look at this one. Up another $3 today. This stock at the early portions of Friday was a $2 stock, folks, and it hit a high today of 14. I mean, think about it, $2 to 14. They had some news out there, but it's just such a small stock. At $2, the market cap was like $5 million or something. So I mean, that's when squeezes happen. That's when the institutions try to run these things like crazy. So it's kind of an interesting thing because it tells you just that small biotechs that have a market cap around that could be of interest. You know, it should be something to keep an eye on, just based on how crazy this run is. I mean, even if you're risking, let's say you buy a small cap at $1, right? And you risk, let's say the stock goes out of business and you lose your full dollar per share. Well, no one wants to do that, but in all fairness, if you buy something at $1 and it could go to $8, Well, it's an 800% move as opposed to worst case losing 100%. It's actually not bad if you think about it. I mean, these moves are rare, but in some instances, you find some small stock that's trading at that range. Maybe it's worth a shot sometimes. You can't deny that with the amazing move that we've seen on CBMX here. So just a thought there to keep in mind going forward. We'll keep an eye on things there. Google remains down. Apple still down about $3.70, although, again, well off the lows. Again, Apple got as high as around 540, just under 540, and as low as 521. So it's been in a wide base range, and it's kind of settling down in the mid-range. I think I'd like to see Apple. If Apple closes positive today, I'll say this right now. This will be what I'll leave you with. If Apple closes positively today, look for upside tomorrow. If it doesn't, it could continue to sell. That's simple, guys. All right. I do think if it closes up today, green today, which I don't know if it will do, but if it does, then I'd look for a move to about 550 in the next day or two on Apple. All right. Apple's actually getting a little bit of a push here back to 530, $530, up a little bit, but still down $3.50 on the day. All right, guys, I'm going to step aside. Come join the Research Center. Come join the Intraday Stock Chat. Research Center is geared towards swing traders and investors. Take the 7-day free trial there and learn the proprietary methodology of the pros. Again, this is proprietary PPT methodology, giving us an 80 to 90% success rate, a beautiful thing. Have a great afternoon, evening, folks. I'll talk to you soon.